Hey traders, checking in on Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space. We had our flush under 30,000. We've had a fairly V-shaped recovery, specifically in a lot of very strong altcoins. Are we safe? Are the bulls back in control? Is our weekly higher low set? What's the game plan from here? And the past trades that I've taken over the past couple days, let's go over everything ever. So we'll start off with the dollar as always. It's not really having much of an impact short term, and it is still favoring bears. Again, I put myself in a scenario where I imagine I was a bull in the dollar, which I'm not, but it's a daily trend change confirmed with zero follow through straight into 4 days of consolidation. So if I were bullish, that would be a red flag because a daily trend change with a lack of follow through means zoom out and it's got a potential flag. And this is a bear flag as long as that weekly EMA 12 is resistance. Best case scenario for the metals and the crypto and the stock market bulls would be to drop to a lower low here after cooling off RSI levels, which were very beat up, specifically on the daily time frame. So we've had a lot going on in the past 24 hours or so. We had a flush break of 30,000 support and a lack of bear follow through. So what did I just say on the dollar? A daily trend change with a lack of follow through means zoom out and scout a flag. Here in this instance, a bear break with a lack of follow through means zoom out and scout a flag. Is it possible that this is a weekly bull flag on Bitcoin? The way that I answer that question is by looking at it, but a lot of people can look at the fib retracements to help answer that question. I would say yes, and the fib retracement would say yes as well. It's still possible. The pullback was about 40% retracement, which puts it right at the gray area. If we see another low from here, I will say nope, unlikely to be a weekly bull flag. And if we do break that low of 28,700, we then look for the weekly equilibrium to be the most likely scenario, which again is the exact same thing that we just did on the daily. We would then just zoom out and do it on the weekly if we see a lower low. If we do not, and if that was our low, and if the bulls change the daily trend from here back in their favor with a bullish next week, then weekly bull flag is absolutely still on the table. So for me personally, when we last checked in, I had stopped out of a core Bitcoin position and went back to all cash. And I stopped out on the break of 33,850. From there, what I looked to do was be aggressive on a re-entry to protect against missed gains, essentially, to re-establish a position in case there was a bear break with no follow through and we held 30,000 support. So I entered on this hourly consolidation. The follow through was great. I also had an Ethereum position at that point in time. I sold the Ethereum position knowing that we were just looking for a 4-hour lower high. So going back in time here on Ethereum, my entry was on the hourly double bottom here. Market order entry at 1257. And I said, okay, that's a big enough bounce on Bitcoin's hourly that I am assuming that we are more likely to change the hourly trend than not. I'm going to sell my Ethereum once we change that hourly trend. Because again, at that point, Ethereum was just looking for a 4-hour lower high, and my target was in the upper 1300s. So I scaled out of Ethereum in 1370s, 1380s. That was a really nice trade, and that helped preserve gains for being too aggressive on Bitcoin. So a very solid win on ETH, but a solid loss on Bitcoin to offset that. I entered on this hourly higher low. We saw a confirmation. We rejected from 4-hour EMA resistance here, and then I stopped out again. And I said in the last video, and it's worth watching just to relive the game plan, I said if I stop out of my aggressive entry, I'm back to sitting on my hands and very patiently waiting, and I would either wait for a daily trend change setup or a break of 30,000 for things to get extreme for me to start scaling in again and reestablishing my position. So essentially I ended up with a loss. The ETH gains did not offset the BTC loss on this pullback, but I was back to all cash And again, I talked about in the last video how I love being back to all cash because it frees me up psychologically, and I was able to enter some nice entries on this pullback on Bitcoin. And I had a fill at 29,511, 20,111. That gave me a break even of about 20,300s, and we are now up 4,000 more than that. So a very good entry. If I could tweak anything, it would have been going more aggressive, but I'll talk about that in just a second. Let's go over my game plan from here. My game plan initially was just to hold this position and enter if we drop lower, because I have a lot of cash still that I am looking to deploy once the bulls regain their control, or if RSI levels and if the sell-off remains extreme. So at this point, I just sold half of my 29,300 entry, and that's just because things are so extended right now. And you will note that the market so often will go from extreme euphoria. When we have a climax top, it's extreme euphoria straight into extreme fear. This is the exact opposite. It's extreme fear straight into euphoria and FOMO. Right now, people have FOMO about missing their entries or wanting to have gotten more on the pullback, and the market sentiment shifts just like that when you have either a V-shaped dump or a V-shaped bounce. I guess it's not a V-shaped dump, it's a A-frame shaped dump or a V-shaped bounce. So I wasn't planning on selling half, but if you give me, on this move, I just made 4% of my 2020 goal. And again, it's a small position. The bounce was massive. 4% of my 2021 capital gains goals across all markets. So if you give me that with no significant consolidation, I'm going to lock some of that in, which I just did. And my goal will be to re-enter what I just exited and more on consolidation. One thing to look at this 4-hour time frame. Some people are going to look at this and say, we changed the 4-hour trend. For me, that doesn't cut it. This little barely break to a lower low is not a clear enough pivot. We're coming from a multiple day downtrend on the 4-hour time frame. And if I just go to the 5-hour time frame instead of the 4-hour, you see what I mean. It's a straight shot bounce, and we need a trend change. That's too much of a pullback. We need a trend change to have confidence in follow through on this bounce. If we get a 4-hour trend change, again, I'm saying we have not changed the 4-hour trend yet. If we get a 4-hour trend change, I am going to be zooming out and then scouting a daily lower high, anything under 37,857. But again, my game plan will be entering positions. Because I sold one at 33,400, I'll re-enter that position, 32,400, and then I will enter more if we drop down into the 31s or 30,000 levels. I've got a herd of turkeys right now storming the gates, and Sweetie Pants is out there somewhere, probably hiding from them all. I'll be right back to finish this up. All right, we're back. Everybody's good. So I have switched my dial back to conservative when I got stopped out of my aggressive re-entry attempt on the hourly high or low, and then I stopped out of that. I switched from aggressive to conservative. I patiently wait, got my bear break, and now I'm going to turn that dial up a little bit by entering on a 4-hour high or low before a confirmed 4-hour trend change takes place. If I want to get aggressive, there's a couple of ways I can do that. I can have my core position, and then I can have my aggressive position. I can stop out of my aggressive position if this level of 28,700 were to break, keep my core position, and then just keep adding back lower. Because the weekly time frame right now has me confident enough where I don't even care if we pull back to 20,000. I know we will set a weekly high or low unless Bitcoin explodes and something very, very rare happens. But we're going to be looking for a weekly high or low. I don't care if it's at 27,000, 20,000. We're setting that high or low, and it's just a question of whether we get continuation or whether we get an equilibrium. So I will scale in at 25, 23, 21, 19. I'll go all in on this weekly high or low. No problem. So that's where my mindset is at. But as of right now, I'm in a conservative position, and I've got a lot of cash to increase that position from conservative to more aggressive on a 4-hour high or low. One other thing about last night, so why didn't I go aggressive? I had a crossroads moment where I saw my first two fills on Bitcoin, got a really good entry on them. We had a falling wedge on the 15-minute time frame, and we've actually got a rising wedge right now on Ethereum, but we'll look at both of those. Well, actually, the falling wedge was earlier. So what it was on Ethereum is we were just extended to the downside, and I pulled up an order for Ethereum, and I was going to market buy Ethereum in the 1050s. And I was going to enter a position that was essentially 150% larger than what my Bitcoin fills were. So it was going to be my Bitcoin position sizing plus 50%. So essentially increasing my crypto exposure significantly. Maybe going from 15% crypto and 85% cash to upping it to maybe 35% crypto and 65% cash. I had a crossroads moment. I'm either going to do this or I'm not. And I made a conscious decision. And I decided against it for a number of reasons. Number one, if I made that entry, what time was that? 10:30? That's bedtime. I was getting ready for bed. If I make that entry, I know that I need to stay up later. I know that I need to wake up in 3 hours and check on that position and manage orders. And I didn't want to do that. I was hanging out with a wonderful woman. I wanted to shut my brain off from the charts. I knowingly, well, not at the time, but in hindsight, I knowingly gave up and left profit on the table to balance with life. In 2017, I absolutely go aggressive and I stay up all night and I wake up every 2 hours. And I say, sorry, I got to go do this. It was great hanging out with you. I'll see you next weekend. And that's just a distinct shift in where I'm at trading this current market. So I decided against it. So now, today, I can look back at that and I can do a number of things. I can look back and say, darn, I should have made the other decision. I could have had this much money, and I could count the imaginary gains that I would have had if I made the other if I took the other path in the fork in the road. Or I could look at it and say, I made a conscious decision. I chose life over trading virtual numbers for that night. I gave up profit, absolutely, but I also increased my net worth fairly significantly while sleeping from my Bitcoin positions. So I can look at it negatively about what else I could have had and want more, or I can look at it positively and say, I slept and made this much money and didn't stress or think about things once. And I am very okay with how it played out. So the Ethereum bounce was massive. These altcoins are bouncing way more significantly than Bitcoin in terms of percentage moves. Definitely want to watch this rising wedge on Ethereum. Again, this bounce is getting extended to this point. We know 4-hour consolidation is going to happen eventually. So just being a bit cautious up here. If this 15-minute time frame were to break bearish, then 4-hour consolidation would then very likely be underway. So that's something to be watching in the short term. And Bitcoin, again, same thing. Extended in the short term. Definitely a lot of bull momentum, but that bull momentum will shift and we'll be scouting a 4-hour high or low. And due to the size of the bounce, I do believe there will be a lot of people looking to buy that 4-hour high or low. If we're going to have best case scenario for the Bitcoin bulls from here, change the 4-hour trend, keep this daily bounce going, make our way up as close as possible to 37,800 resistance, give enough space for a daily trend change to set up once the daily chart tops out, and a confirmed daily trend change would set our weekly high or low and keep a weekly bull flag in the picture. A really patient bull is going to be looking for an entry on a confirmed daily trend change. A more patient bull is going to be entering on a daily high or low using the recent low as our stop. A more aggressive bull is going to be entering on a 4-hour high or low and using our recent low as a stop. So there's many different ways that we can do this, and it depends on how conservative or aggressive do you want to be, which time frame are you focusing on, and what kind of, I don't know. That's it. Dominance chart. Still very weak. So again, it's showing us that there are periods where, it's definitely going up, but for the most part, the altcoins are outperforming Bitcoin. And just to put it in percentage terms, the Bitcoin bounce at this point is definitely not shabby. That's a very impressive 17% bounce. But you look at Ethereum, and that Ethereum bounce is, well, I thought it would be more. 22%. It's more, but not massively more. Increasing bull volume on this bounce is notable. So the dominance chart, we know we're scouting a weekly high or low. And again, I have to ask myself, what are the scenarios that this bounce takes place? Assuming that that is the most likely scenario for a weekly high or low. Doesn't have to be this week, doesn't have to be next week, but sometime in the next few weeks, we're looking for a weekly bounce. We just saw what happens when we have a dump. We had a dump, the altcoins at points dumped faster, but then they bounced stronger. What would shift the market environment over the next 2 weeks that would lead to another dump, but this time the altcoins don't see dip buying? I don't foresee that happening. The market right now is training all of its participants trade these altcoins on the bounces. Look at how much more significant their gains are. Yes, they may drop faster, but if you're playing a bounce, those altcoins are the ones to be buying. So I don't think that's the most likely scenario. Again, I think that if Bitcoin dominance chart is going to bounce, it has to be on a bullish Bitcoin move, probably back to all-time highs to get that attention. And I will be watching for a weekly lower high to be the result of this bounce. But I just see it as a more likely scenario that this dominance chart goes up into cryptocurrency strength as opposed to cryptocurrency weakness. Unless there was some kind of news event that leads to everybody rushing out of altcoins in a very fast manner. And that scenario would favor the potential of Bitcoin being a weekly bull flag. Because again, if we change this daily trend over the next 4 or 5 days, and then we see, continuation back to test the all-time highs within the next 2 weeks, then that's the potential scenario where we get a weekly bounce on this dominance chart. So ETH/USD, did I explain this already? Maybe not. So I think I did. 4-hour trend change, not a 4-hour trend change in my book. 5-hour time frame smooths it out. Need a clear trend change on that 5-hour time frame. ETH/BTC, daily bull flag still intact. And this chart is still strong, absolutely. The best case scenario would be for Bitcoin bulls to confirm a 4-hour trend change and for this ETH/BTC chart to confirm the daily bull flag at the same time. Because that would mean that ETH is just getting more follow through as we've already seen. So a very significant bounce on the daily here. If we reject, we'll need a 4-hour higher low and higher high to confirm that daily bull flag. LinkUSD, again, this bounce is just jaw-dropping. There's one of your bounce winners from that low. Look at us almost back to the all-time high. We're seeing a 30% bounce in hours. 16 hours. So a massive move. Again, FOMO galore. Anybody that gets stopped out of Link, anybody that wanted to buy the dip but was hoping for lower, FOMO, big time. We're looking for a 4-hour higher low because of the proximity to the all-time highs. I might nibble a little bit. Again, whenever I'm trading Link, I use smaller position sizes because it is a lot more volatile. But I might be looking for a back test. Give me a 4-hour higher low off the EMA supports here, and I'll be scouting a potential entry. And the Link BTC chart breaking to a higher high is another reason why I would be scouting a potential Link entry. So just looking back, zooming out, weekly time frame. Significant bounce. We know we will need a weekly trend change at some point. So again, we're going to keep that in the back of our minds. But the daily continuation, certainly notable as well. So congrats to the altcoin bulls. Congrats to the aggressive bulls that were playing this bounce. Yes, we can always do better with our trades. And we can focus on the negative or we can focus on the positive. That is literally a choice that we can make. We're going to be scouting 4-hour higher lows. Bulls feeling the FOMO will be entering on those 4-hour higher lows. If we confirm a 4-hour trend change, we zoom out, scout the daily lower high. Bulls hope that the daily bounce gets enough follow through to create the space to set up the daily trend change and confirm it. Bitcoin is still possible, a weekly bull flag. If we break the current low of consolidation, bull flag goes out the window for me. If, then statement, if that weekly low holds, the weekly bull flag remains on the table as a possibility. And if the dollar were a weekly bear flag, that would increase the odds that Bitcoin could be a weekly bull flag. So that is what we're watching in the short term. There's certainly a lot to be watching. I hope you are all well. Establish those game plans. And let's see if these bulls can follow through for multiple days. We'll check back in and see how this bounce plays out. Have a good rest of your day. Do good things. Have a good weekend.